In this edition of INN CEO Talks, I'm joined by Mark Elfenbein, the CEO and director of X1 Esports, a video game and media portfolio company that owns and operates a growing esports franchise known as RixGG. The business of the company is the competitive playing of video games by teams for cash prizes and operations ancillary to the on-screen competition, such as merchandising and the hosting of tournaments. Mark, welcome.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You know, this sector that you're moving into is a significant business opportunity. Can you explain for viewers just the size and scale of the whole esports and video game environment and where it's going these days? For many people, such as myself, it's new to us, but it is significant.
So, the video game industry has been here for a while, call it, over 40 years ago when Atari was introduced in the early 80s. It kind of continues to grow, relatively speaking, every year, to the point where in 2021, the entire video game industry was $180 billion in total value. It really significantly shot up during the COVID time. Just heading into COVID, the industry value was around $130 billion. So, growing, 20% a year or so very recently. And as a subset of the video game industry, we have the esports piece, which is really the competitive playing of games, almost as if you're making a pro team to enter into competitions and win significant, cash purses for these tournaments. And X1 really operates in the broader, video game industry. We have a esports franchise in Europe called Rix. And then we have other video game and associated assets as part of our public company, which trades under the symbol XONE on the Canadian Securities Exchange.
So what is your number one focus right now from a business perspective?
Yeah, our focus is really looking at these, there's a lot of under the radar assets in the video game industry. So one thing that's nice about the industry is that it always continues to reinvent itself. So the user experience today with, for example, virtual reality is much, much advanced than it was even 2 to 3 years ago. As a result, there is a evolving ecosystem supporting these new advances and companies that are emerging that are getting, great responses to their product. They have audiences, but maybe can't take those businesses to the next level, which is where we come in. And we have a relatively robust M&A strategy where we're acquiring these businesses to all work synergistically with each other and grow them much greater than they could have individually.
So does that mean that you are bringing together, in essence, a global community of creators that don't necessarily have the ability nor the experience in being able to market and create an audience for their games?
Yeah, and what we're seeing is that there's really interesting assets almost globally. The one thing they all have in common, specifically in the video game industry, is that large brands, think of the Fortune 500 brands that are trying to get a hold of these Generation Z audiences, which are kind of early teens to early 20s. That's a very coveted audience. And of course, what's the number one thing that audience is doing is they're playing video games. And so these large brands, work with us to get access to these audiences through the different assets that we have. The assets we have can be in the team gaming space. We have video game media assets. We just acquired a business that supports a video game called Rocket League, which is a very popular video game. And we acquired the business, which effectively is the ESPN of that business. And then we also acquired as you just mentioned, a creator economy business, which is called Tyrus, that has 65 very influential talents signed to their roster, where they could individually have audiences of millions of people on their YouTube channels, their TikTok channels, where we will work with brands to connect them with that audience through these content creators.
So how do you make your money?
We have a couple different revenue streams. In some cases, we are operating in the traditional media industry where we're deriving revenues through advertising and sponsorships. One example of that, for example, is that we recently engaged with Warner Brothers, where they are just now launching a new Harry Potter remote control that's like a Harry Potter wand to control your TV set. As it happens, we have one of the content creators that is very well known in the Harry Potter community. So they're tying into that content creator to get access to their user base and effectively advertise their product to a few million of their followers. So, traditional sponsorship and advertising is an area. We also have subscription-based revenues where we're earning monthly recurring revenues from different services we're doing. And, those are two of our, core revenue streams.
It's a pretty competitive space. As you pointed out, it's worth billions and billions of dollars. So what is it about you that makes you particularly competitive and a good bet for investors to be looking at?
Well, one thing I'm drawing on is that I previously was a co-founder of another public company called Fun Technologies in the 2000s. It was a business where we had a very similar strategy where we rolled up 7 to 8 different gaming assets in the esports area, fantasy sports, mobile sports. We eventually sold that business to Liberty Media for just under $500 million. And as we're looking at X1, it's effectively a remix of that business, but with updated assets to take advantage of the new technologies hitting the video game space and all the really new, interesting under the radar assets we're finding to come together as one to create a very significant organization.
Where's your company based, or is it because of the nature of it that you're spread out across multiple jurisdictions with people all working remotely?
We do. We have operations throughout Europe, which is where our esports business operates. We just acquired a Rocket League video game business, which is headquartered in Las Vegas, and our corporate headquarters is in Vancouver. So we're relatively, geographically diverse, and that's kind of the nature of the video game industry now, where you have, hundreds of millions of people globally connecting with each other to play games all over the world.
So for many, they'll go, okay, I know some of the big names in the gaming sector. Why is it that they should maybe let go of saying, I'm gonna go to those big guys and look for more agile organizations like yours as a place to put their money?
Yeah, and so I think that we are a company that are, I think, hitting a lot of these key areas. A recent organization that just went public in the esport category is a business called FaZe Clan, which went public a few weeks ago and has been doing extraordinarily well as a public company. It's trading at over $1 billion market capitalization. They're also kind of focused on this creator economy. We're very diversified as well, which we think is attractive to advertisers and investors as we could individually grow these businesses, perhaps spin them off in the future. But more importantly, we think that we can really find these hidden gems and take them to levels that they couldn't get to otherwise.
So as a company, are you cash flow positive right now?
We're in the growth phase right now. We just went public. We just made some acquisitions. So we're in the process. Reaching cash flow positivity is very important to us. So when we're looking at these businesses, we're looking at their cash flows, and that's a core criteria in the transactions we're doing.
And so therefore, then the next question for investors is: are you looking to raise future funds right now? Or really is your objective in saying, pay attention to us and get in where we're at right at this point?
Yeah, at this point, we're not looking to raise any money. Our burn rate is very modest considering what we're doing. We just closed our acquisitions. We don't have any other significant cash needs. So at this point, we're really looking at integrating the acquisitions we just made, growing those businesses, and reporting good numbers, and then looking opportunistically at other M&A opportunities that make a lot of sense for us, where we're finding very attractive valuations and can grow those businesses significantly beyond.
For those who have now reached this point in this interview are going, okay, I'm interested in you, what are the most important things that I should be looking to in the next quarter or two as I consider making an investment?
Well, in the next quarter, we'll start to report some of our numbers. We've made some very interesting acquisitions. We just acquired a business, and we're using pretty conservative cash with businesses that actually have real cash flows. For example, we acquired a business very recently using only $150,000 of cash, and so as we're rolling up some of these businesses, we'll start seeing some of these synergies come out. We'll start reporting some numbers, and we'll start seeing a lot of traction in terms of just large user growth to the assets we have, significant partners on the advertising side, and then also the financial results that come appropriately with those achievements. And that's really the focus of the business for the next little while.
Pretty exciting time, isn't it? We look at as we look at the traditional video game sector, as you pointed out, has been around for a number of decades, but the direction that we're moving in and the fact that it's going off in different directions makes for an awful lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I would say also one interesting thing is people, going back to the esport part of this, a lot of people don't realize that it's really rivaling professional sports. So when you have, there's hundreds of video games out there that are esports now, they each individually have their global championships in different arenas all over the world. So one example, one sport that we've really like is a sport called Rocket League, which had its global championships last week in Dallas and was selling out arenas, 14,000, 15,000 people a day coming in to watch these teams play live on big screens in these arenas. And some of the championships of some of these very large video games are as large as the Super Bowl viewing audiences. So in terms of just trends out there, something people didn't quite realize how big this industry is getting.
Well, I know I encountered by just pure circumstance driving past one of these events that was going on in Vancouver a couple of years ago. I went, what is this? And then when I learned the scale of it, as you point out, it is Super Bowl scale, if not larger, because it's global in nature. It was an extraordinary competition, and so it's a very exciting place for you to be in. And I hope you'll come back in the future and bring us up to date on advances that you've made this year.
We expect to have lots of updates in the short term.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time today, Mark.
Thanks.